Hello. I'm here today to talk to you about a trial that we conducted at the State Insurance Regulatory Authority, or SIRA as we're commonly known, into telematics. I think most people here probably know a little bit about telematics. We certainly did. We have heard a lot about it being used overseas. We've heard a lot of really positive anecdotes about the benefits of it and how it affects driver safety. But we hadn't come across any large-scale trials of it, and particularly trials of younger drivers. So in New South Wales, we were quite interested in understanding whether we could positively influence young driver behaviour. We were looking at whether there were opportunities or barriers to broadening the use of telematics, and we were looking for some extensive real-time driving data, which is why we set out on this trial, partnering really closely with the Centre for Road Safety in New South Wales. So last year, we had over 700 drivers enrol in our trial. They were all aged between 17 to 24 years old, and most of the participants came from Western Sydney, outer Sydney, or regional New South Wales. So quite a variety of different driving conditions and roads. There were 3 components to the study. So there was a 6-month randomised control group trial consisting of 1 treatment group and 1 control group. There was a pre- and post-intervention study where we took 100 participants. We looked at how they drove as a baseline for the first 3 months, and then as a post-intervention once we had turned on the device to make a comparison in their driving behaviours. And then there was also attitudinal research. So we undertook a series of surveys and focus groups with the participants to understand how they felt about the telematics device and how it impacted their driving behaviour. So there was quite a range of feedback available to the treatment group. They were able to access a driver score. They could review their trip summary after they finished driving, of course. And they also had a leaderboard where they could compete and compare against other drivers in the trial. In addition to this, they got real-time feedback data from a small LED light that was positioned on their dashboard, and it would change colour when they were speeding or making harsh manoeuvres as they were driving. The control group drivers didn't receive any feedback, so the app was configured so that it omitted the driver scores, the trip summaries, and the scoreboards. We used a series of proxy indicators, and we work quite closely with the Centre for Road Safety around this, looking at the frequency and severity of harsh braking, acceleration, turning, and speeding as outcome measures. And the reason we selected those is because a lot of the road safety literature sort of shows that these are commonly used lead indicators to suggest potential crash risks. So using those proxy indicators as the basis for comparison, we compared the driving results between the 2 groups for the entire 6-month period. We also then compared the results for the group which switched over midway at the 3-month mark and looked at what their behaviour was like when they were receiving no feedback in comparison to what it was like once they started receiving the real-time feedback. So based on a comparison of almost 16,000 driving hours for the treatment group and another 10,000 for the control group, we saw that the treatment group was substantially safer overall. So overall, the treatment group sped less frequently over the 6 months. On average, it was about 11% lower in medium range speed and almost 40% lower at high range speeds. That's quite significant. We also noticed that even when the treatment group was speeding, they tended to exceed the speed limit by slightly less than average. However, we do have to note that these differences between the treatment and control group did start to converge over the 6 months, suggesting that the young drivers that participated in the trial were less influenced by the feedback as the trial went on. We saw similar results when it came to harsh braking, acceleration, and turning events. On average, across the 6 months, we saw that the treatment group had 42% lower rates of harsh braking, 25% lower rates of rapid acceleration, and 24% lower rates of harsh turning. The differences when it came to these particular manoeuvres did seem to be sustained across the whole 6 months. When we looked at the pre and post-intervention group, so the 100 participants that switched midway, we saw similar results actually to that of the treatment group. So participants started performing better when they were receiving the live data and feedback in comparison to not receiving it. We also spent some time with the participants trying to understand their attitudes towards telematics devices and gathering their data around their driving. We undertook a series of surveys and focus groups and spoke to them about some of the barriers and opportunities for broadening telematics. In terms of general perceptions of telematics, 75% of participants overall believed that it had a positive impact on their driving, and most felt that it had helped them drive in a safer manner. We found that most younger drivers could be motivated to use a telematics device in various ways, and the most obvious being some sort of discount on insurance or registration, as well as opportunities to win prizes for good driving. However, this group also were quite safe drivers, and they did seem to be motivated by simply wanting to be a safer driver. There were some surprising results as well amongst this group when it came to questions around privacy and other concerns about their personal data. Nearly 3/4 of participants believe that more drivers should have telematics devices installed in their car, and a similar level thought that they should be mandatory for risky drivers. We also found that 9 out of 10 participants surveyed did not have any major concerns about insurance companies accessing their driving data, provided it meant it led to some sort of discount. Similar levels of participants said they wouldn't be concerned with government having access to the data as long as it was de-identified. So most participants didn't raise concerns about using a telematics device, but of the few that did, some of those concerns were around privacy, tracking, access to data. Some were around product improvement suggestions. There were a few around driver distraction, the validity or accuracy of the feedback that they received, connectivity issues, and the design and ergonomics of the particular device that was used in the trial. While participants cited privacy and data disclosure as areas of concern, they did not appear to be preoccupied by it, and the evidence suggests that privacy concerns could be overcome if the data was de-identified and if participants were provided a benefit for providing the data. So telematics, is it a game changer? The results from the trial overall are quite positive. Overall, the driver behaviour did change as a result of the telematics device, and we have the evidence to support that across a large-scale trial. It suggests that drivers and young drivers who tend to be the most risky can change their behaviour with live feedback and encouragement. We also think that given their openness to technology, their more liberal attitudes towards privacy and data sharing, and their tendency to drive older vehicles, which are unlikely to have inbuilt OEM telematics capabilities, they're actually a prime cohort for this sort of trial. However, there are numerous challenges. The user attrition rate was quite high. Around 50% of participants had stopped recording their driving data by month 6, which demonstrates that users will stop using a telematics device unless there are compelling and ongoing incentives for them to do so. Furthermore, it also suggests that we need to ensure that driving feedback provided to drivers remains relevant to them so that they keep paying attention and keep adjusting their driver behaviour. Driver distraction, that around 17% of participants indicated that the real-time feedback LED display had distracted them from driving tasks. In most cases, the distraction was reported to be a passing issue and minor. However, if we were to look at this more broadly speaking, it would need to be addressed. The willingness to pay for a telematics device. So over half of participants stated that they would have not paid for their own telematics device. However, 3 out of 4 said that they would be likely to use one if it was provided to them by a government or an insurance company. So that suggests that adoption rates of a telematics device on its own would remain low unless there was somebody providing them. And low penetration rates. So even in countries with more mature markets, like the US, telematics usage-based insurance policies are still in the minority. So only around 5% of the US motor insurance market has currently opted into a telematics-based policy. So I guess telematics, I think we've proven it absolutely can impact driver behaviour in a positive way, but there's still a long way to go in considering what some of the considerations are for policy and for driver behaviour, and how we might be able to sustain change driver behaviours in the long term. Thank you.